Okay. Welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. Delighted to be joined by PDC Players Championship winner, major winner, Paul Nicholson. Paul, it's great to have you back on the channel. And the other week you had your first experience of St James's Park post Mike Ashley when you went to see the Fulham game, which we won 1-0. Just before we come on to the cup final, tell us about your day and your experience.
It was wonderful. I think there are times in your life when you just need reminding of what's important to you. And I remember what it was like when I spoke to Chris Dobie, another great follower of NFTV, and I said to him I was coming up to the Northeast in January because I wanted to see my family, and my grandfather's in North Shields, and I saw that Newcastle were playing Fulham on the weekend that I was actually going up there. And I thought, what a great opportunity it would be to go and watch. But I didn't take for granted at the time that I could get a ticket because of the popularity of going to see them, especially on a Super Sunday. I thought it's going to be difficult. But speaking to Chris, I thought, maybe he knows somebody who would be willing to give up their season ticket for the day or something like that. And he said, leave it with me, I'll sort it out. And he did. He sorted everything out. I met up with him outside of Shiraz, and we went in with his dad and his uncle and had the full hospitality experience. I'm not joking. It was just a joy from start to finish. And the moment when you walk out that tunnel and you haven't been in that ground for a period of 2 decades. I mean, I used to work there during Euro 96, so I know what it used to be like, but there was a different buzz around the place and amazing seats, great hospitality. Tim Healy was in that area. I felt so at home. And it was a tremendous place to share time with Chris, who's obviously having the time of his life at the minute. Getting the result as well. It was a brilliant day. And I actually felt really sad walking away from the ground that day because Chris went one way with his family and I went the other. And all the fans had already gone. And I thought, I've actually got to drive back to Sussex tomorrow. And I felt quite sad about it because I'd had such an adrenaline rush that day. But as an experience, it was first class.
Getting a late winner as well. The noise when Isak's goal went in must have been something to behold.
It really was, considering that we were, looking around at the flags at the start, and then such a frustrating game, really, where we just couldn't seem to break through. But towards the end, we've all got, our nails in our mouth, thinking, "Come on, we'd love to get this result today." And eventually, when Isak put the ball in the back of the net, the change from tension to me just turning to Chris and to his family and just completely letting a scream out. I lost my voice within about 10 seconds. It was a great moment. And I was happy for Alex to get the goal as well because I know how much he craved that. But yeah, what a moment.
Yeah, another very special moment was the final whistle and the semi-final second leg against Southampton. Were you watching it at home live that night? And what were your emotions when that final whistle went and Newcastle United were going to Wembley?
It was a really interesting evening because I was working in Portsmouth at the Motor Super Series that week with Glenn Durrant, who was as everybody knows, he's from Middlesbrough. And when Newcastle took an early lead and doubled it, I'm pretty relaxed at that point. But when Southampton, tend to, get back into the game with Shea Adams, you think, oh, this could get a bit sticky. And then Glenn comes down the stairs and then lets it be known to pretty much everybody in this Portsmouth street that Southampton are back in the game. I thought, I'm going to be quiet at this point. I'm just going to wait. And I was patient. But when that final whistle went, it was just a little bit of relief maybe because we were expected to get the result. But at the same time, really happy to see proper Geordies getting a goal at the Gallagher, in Sean Longstaff, and obviously Dan Burn in an earlier round. But I think there was an overwhelming sense of relief and joy at that point. And then within a matter of moments, we all knew that I think it's going to be Man U we're going to be playing. So let's not get too excited. Let's pitch ourselves for what is going to be maybe the hardest game of our season come Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, I was there that night, and you're right. It was relief. The tension was building in the stadium as well when Southampton got the goal back, and obviously we went a man down. But it really shouldn't have been because Southampton needed 2 more goals just to take it to extra time. Yeah. But that tells you how much it means to us Newcastle fans, because we've been starved of anything of the like for so many years now.
Yeah, welcome to the life of a Newcastle United fan. We never take anything for granted. I mean, all you got to do is go back to the time we were 4-0 down to Arsenal and we were able to get a 4-4 draw. I mean, we understand what it's like to have leads and then be drawn back in. I mean, all you got to do is go back, 27 years to Liverpool, Anfield twice, and we've been ahead and we've been pegged back. And, we've got very good memories, Newcastle fans, and we don't take anything for granted. I mean, even if we are 3-0 up in the final come 70 minutes in, we're not going to rest on it. We're going to make sure that we get a fourth, because we know that our brand of football means that it's going to be exciting no matter what.
Absolutely. You mentioned briefly there Newcastle-Liverpool, which happened to be the fixture last weekend, which is almost, a particular incident in that game has overshadowed Newcastle's preparation for the final with the sending off of Nick Pope. One, he must be devastated, and two, just how big of a loss will Nick Pope be for this final? Not to mention that Dubravka can't play because he's cup tied, because he played for Man United in an earlier round.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure Martin didn't expect to go to Manchester United this season at any point. The fact that he only played a couple of games for them and he comes back, the one game that we actually do make it at Wembley, he can't play. But then Nick, who's had an amazing season, it's heartbreaking for Nick, considering how good a season he's had and how dependable he's been. And the one time he makes a mistake, it costs him a Wembley walk down the tunnel to play on that pitch. I'm heartbroken for him because he's been such a great servant to this club this season. But ultimately, it's a chance for somebody to get their shot in Gillespie or Karius, and they're going to have to step up. There's no doubt about that, because the threat that Man U have got, stops are going to have to be made. Someone's going to have to command that box, and whoever it is going to be, they'll get the full support. But we dearly wanted Nick between the sticks, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen. And it's going to be a bitter thing for him to take. But he's got the rest of the season to make it up to Newcastle and to himself to try and get us as far up the table as possible. But the overwhelming feeling is that you wanted your top guy in between the sticks. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, sport can be very cruel at times, can't it? But on the flip side of that, I mean, it's looking like Loris Karius is going to get the nod ahead of Mark Gillespie. I mean, his last competitive game was remembered again for all the wrong reasons in that Champions League final. Do you have any qualms about him starting in goal?
For someone who hasn't played that long, I mean, maybe, but it has to be someone, right? It's got to be someone who will get confidence from the squad and from the coaching staff this week, because I think the most important thing for Eddie and the coaching staff this week is to basically name that keeper early in training camp and say, right, you're going to be there, and you've got to get yourself mentally ready for as long as possible, whether it's 3, 4, 5 days. And whoever it's going to be, they've just got to have the full backing of the back four. They've got to have the backing of the squad. Everybody's got to get around that person and the sub-keeper as well, because you never know if that person might be needed, considering how things are going. So get behind them, give them some confidence. And if you're going to have a back four in front of you, it might as well be the back four that you got with Trips, with Botman, with Byrne, and with Cher. So let's face it, you couldn't ask for more if you're a keeper right now, but it's going to be a big ask. Be confident when that ball's in the air, command it. And what a chance for Karius now to maybe right a couple of wrongs. If it can have a solid game, it might give us a chance.
Absolutely. I mean, it always didn't really sit well with me the way Liverpool treated him after that game. All right, he had a stinker, but it happens when you're a goalkeeper. But I suppose with our kind of team spirit in that dressing room, Karius will be, or Gillespie, as you say, if he gets the nod, they'll be well placed to have the full support of the squad around them. Definitely.
And I think the right people are going to speak up this week. I think Dan Byrne and Sean Longstaff will communicate to the whole playing crop how important this is for the city. And you look at Bruno in the terraces over the last couple of games and just how much he's chomping at the bit to get on the pitch. I mean, we miss him, And he's going to speak up this week. Big Joe's going to get up and, get everybody's back up, saying that he's going to be the sheriff in the middle of the pitch as much as he can be. He's probably going to have the game of his career if we're going to lift this trophy. But I think if there is a time for Karius to have a little bit of, coming into a squad and putting some of those wrongs right, this is probably the right moment. I think he's probably the right man for the job. I mean, I'm not in the goalkeeping staff right now. I don't know what's going on in the background, but what goes around comes around, right? And everybody deserves a second chance. So Karius might be getting his, but what a squad to back you up. And if we've got strength in this squad, it needs to stand up this weekend if we're going to break this trophy drought. This is the biggest mountain to climb against a man who are really, really starting to soar. They're an impressive squad. What Ten Hag's done with them is incredible over the last 3 or 4 months. I commend them as much as I hate them. But, I mean, got to be honest, right? I can't stand Man United. I grew up with a house full of Man United fans in Blythe. I mean, don't get me started. But I've got to admire the fact that they have got themselves out of a really sticky situation earlier in the season. Ten Hag's a great manager, and what he's done with Rashford is meteoric, and he's going to be the one we're going to have to watch.
Absolutely. I mean, you highlighted a few players there. Let's talk about the game itself then. Where are the key battles on the pitch?
Well, I'm really itching to see Joe Linton versus Casemiro. I mean, talk about...
Is Joe Linton the footballing equivalent of Gerwyn Price, perhaps?
Maybe a little bit. I think there's going to be some jostling in the middle of the pitch. I'll be amazed if everybody's still on the pitch at the end of this one, because for a fact we're going to give it everything no matter what. But there are some people in that team from Man United who will not give an inch either. There's some superstars in there who are, a bit twinkle toes as well, like Rashford and Sancho. And then you got Bruno on our side and a little bit of, Anthony Gordon potentially and Joe Willock. But let's face it, I think the battle is going to be in the middle of the pitch. And I think it's going to be quite furious. I think there's going to be some tackles in there from Longstaff. I think there'll be some jostling by Joe Linton. I think Casemiro in there, and their middle is going to be tested. If we can boss them around and make it a bit ugly, like the 1988 Cup final between Liverpool and Wimbledon, we've got a shot. But we are going to have to score some goals. Someone's going to have to start shooting at that target, because the one thing I've noticed over the last month is that we're not having shots. We're trying to do what Man City do in trying to scythe through a defence. And as good as we have been with certain setups this season in that regard, it's not working all the time. So we need people to get into position and take that quick shot and test the keeper and hope for a rebound on some occasions. So again, that's where the likes of Willock and Joe Linton come in. But down the flanks, for a fact that Trippier is going to have a really busy day with Rashford. And whoever's on the right-hand side for Man United, that Dan Burn's going to be exasperated by the time the 90th minute comes. It's a fascinating contest. And I know that Newcastle have not played their best for the last 4 weeks, but if they've got some gas in the tank, it's got to be left empty by the end of 90 minutes in this one.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with the battles you've highlighted there as well. Obviously, we now do have Bruno back from suspension. We haven't won a game without him this season. So to have him back is going to be absolutely huge for us, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The creativity that we didn't have before we got him, and the creativity that we haven't had the last couple of games, it's so evident. I mean, watching him play live and watching him play live on television as well, the amount of balls that he is able to get out of tight areas and put into somewhat unexpected attacking jaunts as well is remarkable. I actually don't think we've seen anywhere close to how good he could possibly be. I think he's in the infancy of his greatness, but he's still the best player that we've got. And he makes other people around him look better. He makes Joe Linton better. He makes Joe Willock better. He makes Sean Longstaff better. And we really have missed him. And we're all going to breathe a collective sigh of relief. And it's like a new, invigorating oxygen tank when he's back on that pitch, because he gives us the creative flair that we need. Almost like what we had with David Ginola back in the 90s. Give him the ball And you know whatever happens next is going to be creative. That's what we have missed over the last couple of games.
100%. So if a miracle, well, not a miracle, because we have got a chance, let's face it. If Newcastle do win the cup, how will you celebrate? Are you hopping in the car and driving up to Newcastle, or are you working the Eurotour this weekend?
Yeah, I'm in Germany. I mean, Chris Dobie, bless him, said that if they made the final, he wasn't going, even though I think he was a seeded player. So he's not going to Kiel, north of Hamburg, to play in this tournament. Fair play to him. I think if I was in his position, I'd do the same. But I'm working there, and I have promised that this is coming with me.
Yes.
And if I'm allowed to, I'm going to be wearing it under my suit. So it'd be a bit of a bold statement if I can do it, because there will be some Manchester United fans, I'm sure, like Joe Cullen and a few other players who might be going for the Red Devils. But this is a big opportunity. I remember those cup finals against Man U and those battles in the 90s, which made me cry as a teenager. I'd like things to be turned around. And I think there will be a lot of people wanting Manchester United to lose this weekend, including all the Liverpool fans, the Man City fans. So I think there'll be a lot of people on our side. But if we can win, I'm going to have a great time on Sunday working on commentary for the European darts this weekend. So let's see what kind of adrenaline I can put into the commentary if we win. But I'll have to pep myself over some great darts if we don't get the result.
Oh, I'm sure you will. But this leaves us with one final question, Paul. How's the game going to go, and what's your score prediction?
I think it's a tough game. In my heart of hearts, I've got to be honest, I see the only way us winning is if we have the defensive performance of our season. We've had some great defensive performances, don't get me wrong, but we can't afford to do what we did against Liverpool a few days ago, leaving those holes between the two centre-backs. I think we'll get exposed there potentially. We need to score goals, and I think the only way we win is if it's 1-0. If we can somehow shut them out and get a goal on the counter-attack with someone like Wilson or Isak, or a little bit of brilliance from saint-maximin, I see that's the way we win. If it's high scoring, I think it's going to be a struggle, because I think they've got more in the way of threats than us. But I stand by Sven Botman. I absolutely adore that guy. I think he's been the signing of the year for us. You know, pound for pound, one of the best defenders on the planet for me. Just been a great, great acquisition. But if he can take care of his section with Fabian, with Dan, and with Trips, if we can shut them out and keep them at bay, we might nick it 1-0. That's my best case scenario.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back on NFTV once again. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're more than welcome anytime.